democracy and how far we have come as a state. You know, and Parliament is celebrating our 30th anniversary for parliamentary democracy in Ghana. So I contributed to the debate, and I spoke about several issues. The lack of independence of the legislature, the fact that we don't seem to be doing what we are supposed to be doing.
There's political
the
party
core
influence.
responsibilities of Parliament is to legislate, deliberate, oversight, and also hold the executive arm accountable, and even the judiciary. And I feel that we have been very docile, or sometimes moribund. And I made reference to the description of Parliament, particularly the Ghanaian Parliament, by the likes of Professor Esman Johnson, Professor Ninsin, Professor Jampo, Professor Achwai. They've all collectively described the Ghanaian Parliament as a rubber stamp. And I was making reference to the fact that sometimes people are justified in describing us the manner they do because of our attitude, because of the way we conduct ourselves. You don't seem to see some seriousness. You don't also seem to see some level of independence. And I attributed this to our constitutional architecture, where the Constitution says that the president must appoint at least 50% or more than 50% of his ministers from Parliament. So so you have people who are performing dual roles or responsibilities. If you have a minister who is also a member of Parliament, now which one should he side with in case there is a conflict? Such a minister sat at cabinet, a decision was taken. Even if he was against the decision, it's the president who chairs cabinet, and the president says that is my policy direction. Then the minister brings the same bill or business or international contractual arrangement to Parliament. He can't be seen kicking against something that he himself brought, even if he was not satisfied with it. Because from at cabinet, he then removed the presidential gown and dons the parliamentary gown. So the constitutional arrangement, and remember the Constitutional Review Commission indeed recommended that we should take steps to insulate, if you like, the executive entirely, the legislative arm entirely from the grip of the executive arm. I concluded on the round pegs what you are referring to. The way committee members are selected. You have just the chief whips and the leadership, sometimes just the chief whip, to determine who should be on which committee. The standing orders are very clear. You must be on at least one standing committee and another select committee. And that one is left at the heads of the chief whips. Now, the specific one I talked about was not about this parliament. I said in the CIF parliament, in the CIF parliament, I am the longest serving student leader in Ghana, without any doubt. I was engaged in student activism consistently for 10 years, from SRC to NOX, and then became the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union for 4 years. So 10 solid years I was engaged in student activism. And after that, when NDC won elections, I was made the Deputy National Coordinator for National Youth Employment Program. My first master's was in planning, and my thesis was on local governance. So when I came to Parliament, I chose Youth and Sports Committee, because that was where I felt that my expertise, my experience could be brought to bear. And I also chose local government because of my academic background. But I was never given any of these committees. Instead, I was put on finance committee and environment committee. I mean, clearly. Exactly. So, and in fact, I'll tell you one thing about Parliament. Every MP, it doesn't matter your level of education. You can't use one term to understand entirely the proceedings of Parliament. That is why when you look at the likes of Honorable Mutaka, he's not a lawyer. But you cannot mention currently, in this current Parliament, if you mention one, if he's not two, at least he'll be three, in terms of the experience, because of the longevity. Now, someone goes to Parliament, the committee that I think that if you put me on, because of my experience as a student leader, and also having worked with National Youth Employment Program, and been engaged in youth activism and youth programs, I felt that my experience could have been brought to bear if I was put on the committee that I chose. I was not given youth and sports. Then I chose local government because of my academic background and I was feeling that, okay, they could put me on local government. I was never put in there. They put me on finance and environment. So I had to learn. And I agree that people can learn under a job. But you don't have that time.
Yeah.
Coming to learn under a job and coming to bring to bear the little experience I have accumulated over the years. So that was why I said round pegs in square holes.
Yeah.
And in fact, the new standing order, there have been changes in the committees. I indicated I didn't want to be a leader, and I told Honorable Agboja when I was contacted whether they wanted to make me a leader of a committee. I said no, I don't want to be a leader of a committee. I'm comfortable with the committees under which I serve now, because I felt that some wanted, let the opportunity go to them. We must all not lead. Yeah. But I was actually approached by the majority leader and the minority leader and the minority chief whip. Dr. Atufosin approached me on that. Honorable Agboja approached me on that. And I told all of them that I wasn't interested in becoming a leader of any committee. They should give the leadership to others, you know. But my point is that all those, there have been a lot of changes. And there are a lot of people who are complaining from both sides, from NDC, from MPP.
Yeah.
People feel that my expertise cannot be brought to bear. So I was making that point in reference to why it is sometimes justified to describe our parliament as ineffective, inefficient, and a rubber stamp. Because if people are not put even on committees, you know, on committees that they think that their expertise and experience could be brought to bear, naturally, the output is not going to be something that is encouraging. In fact, I emphasize on the output. I'm a very proud member of parliament, but let's admit, sometimes the output is disappointing.
Right.
See, just to add my voice to what my senior colleague is saying, it's important that people are appointed or recruited on merits. As he's saying, if you take his CV, there was a time I asked somebody a question. I said, a gentleman had been given a position, and so I looked at his CV, his background. Then I asked myself, why did they even request for his CV if you know you are going to give him the same position? He practically had no knowledge. He had no idea what it was. So if you take Aramutala, somebody who has a background in local government, somebody who has a background in dealing with youth, somebody who has a background having served all this while, and you go and put him on a finance committee, he's never studied finance, and you put him on a finance committee, what would be his input on that select committee? Yes, they will say that they are supposed to have research assistants who are supposed to do the work for them and all that.
We didn't even have research assistants in the CIF Parliament. Our offices were in our boots.
You understand? So you will notice that they practically would have no impact and would make no impact. They go and the 2-3 people who are on that committee who have finance background would bully their way through all the time. And there are those that the leadership would always use to push their agenda.
Yeah.
And this is deliberate. I'm being honest. He understands the game. It is deliberate. Because if leadership wants to push something through, let's say trade, industry, and tourism, that's a one select committee. And they have people who do not understand the issues when it comes to trade and tourism. And they bring it there, they have these 2-3 people. All of us on the committee will be relying on the knowledge of those 2-3 people. So once you are able to win them to your side, everything you come to the table with when it comes to trade, industry and tourism will definitely go through. Because I will not have that time to go and
properly scrutinize
the document. I know my colleague understands, so I would call him. This thing they have brought, what do you make of it? Once he tells me, oh, wait, it is good to go. I mean, you know, as a Wako science teacher said, what was the lizard, Agama lizard? And he explains to you, more paper. You understand me?
Yeah.
I mean, it will be very difficult. But this takes me to my Great Transformational Plan. If you read the page 41 of the Great Transformational Plan, where it comes to do with public sector reforms, there is one point that is very important. He says that, Alan says, we would institute mechanisms to promote meritocracy. Meritocracy here is appointing people on merit. Whichever institution it is, we have to be able to appoint people based on merits, so that those people will not be paid the taxpayers' money just for paying sake. They would be there, their knowledge they have will be put to use. And that is what is lacking in Ghana, in most of our institutions. If you go to the ministries, there are some of the chief directors who do not understand the technicalities of those ministries.
Those ministries, right.
Let's be real. You go to some of the technical ministries, sectorial ministries, and you would have their chief director, probably a long-term journalist or a long-term bank manager somewhere who has served all his life and has come into the public sector now, and he's made a chief director. So if you have such a person who is probably leading the agric ministry,
Yeah.
what understanding does the person have when it comes to agric ministry? So how best can the person implement your planting for food and jobs? Because the minister there is there to lead the political policy formations. The technical people are supposed to understand that policy, translate it into its technical nature for implementation.
Right. I'm expecting Elvis Bota of the New Patriotic Party is going to be joining us soon, but we'll start our conversation regardless. We do know for a fact that when you go to Kenya, the tax bill has been withdrawn. President Ruto has rescinded that decision on signing it into law, but it appears that the protest won't die down anytime soon. The people of Kenya, the Gen Z specifically, they still have been protesting, and we do know for a fact that, or we have heard that shops are being closed in Nairobi currently because of the extent or the impact of these protests. Some persons have even lost their lives as a result. I'll quickly go to Honorable Mutala for his initial thoughts on this subject matter.
Yesterday, I guess you were in Parliament in contributing to the statement which was made by Honorable Woyomi. I did make a point on this Gen Zs and the demonstration in Kenya, and I reminded my colleagues that one of the reasons why the Gen Zs, if not the most important reason, engaged in the demonstrations in Kenya was the absolute disillusionment they had or they have for politicians and members of parliament and politicians in general. And let us not be deluded into thinking that our democracy is buoyant, our democracy is growing leaps and bounds. We have been practicing this democracy for 30 years and more now, and therefore it is very stable. When we begin or we do not desist from some of the actions for which reasons public opinion will be shifted against us, we'll have a problem. And one of the most important reasons why people would engage in the kinds of things they engage in, particularly in Kenya and in many parts of the world, including Africa, is corruption. I mean, I have said it time, without number, that when we look at corruption as a state, we tend to be focusing on just political corruption. I agree, political corruption ought to be focused on. But to fight this battle, we need to look at corruption holistically. There's financial corruption, there is moral corruption, there is social corruption, there is psychological corruption. There are all manner of corruptions that, people are engaged in. I mean, if people are corrupt and the media is also corrupt, then that is worrying. If politicians are corrupt and the judiciary is corrupt, that is worrying. If the executive is corrupt or the judiciary is corrupt, that is worrying. The reason why political corruption is very important and ought to be spoken about is that only politicians are given the privilege, authority, and the opportunity to deal with the issue of corruption. If you are a president, you are given so much powers. You have the authority to determine who sleeps in his house and who doesn't sleep in his house. Everything that happens in the country is driven by your policy and your vision. And therefore, if you appoint people to execute that policy or that vision, you have a moral duty to ensure they do it without engaging in things that are illegal. I'll tell you a story. When I was NYP Deputy National Coordinator, and I remember we had a program in Tamale. Then when they did the budget for the program, and then as a Deputy National Coordinator, I was there, and then they came and said that this is your budget, this is your money for accommodation. I said no, and you can find out. I live in Tamale, I have a home in Tamale, I have a house in Tamale. So why should I take money for accommodation? And you can check. I said no. And the guy was shocked why I was instead, oh, but you can just take it. I said no. Look, recently, just sometime last month, I was there and they called me, our committee for trade. They are giving us seedlings, coconut seedlings. And then the clerk called and said, oh, the coconut seedlings. I said, I don't grow coconut in my constituency. And then someone called and said, oh, one of them said, oh, why not take it and take? I said, no, I won't. And I was having a discussion with Honorable Yusuf. And I said, look, I won't take this because, one, I don't have coconut, I don't plant coconut in Tamale Central. Now, even if I take the coconut and give it to a colleague who lives in an area where he can utilize, tomorrow when there is problem and they check, they say, oh, Mutala also took the coconut seedlings. When in actual fact, he doesn't have coconut, grown in his area.
Where did he take it?
So sometimes civil servants in our institutions are those who are aiding politicians to be corrupt. I'm not defending politicians being corrupt, and I've said it time and again. Corruption among politicians for me is the most dangerous aspect of all the corruptions we have. Because the civil servant can be dealt with when he is engaged in corruption. Okay? The teacher, the public servant, and the authority to deal with those who engage in corrupt act. You are given the privilege authority. The government is given the privilege authority, the power. The executive does. The judiciary is given that exclusive authority to determine who is wrong and who is right based on evidences that are provided. In this country, politicians are corrupt. The executive, you can't even talk about that. The judiciary is corrupt in this country. In fact, the former Chief Justice herself, Georgina Wood, publicly stated that the judiciary was corrupt. And they still are.
Analysis number A.
Afrobarometer. Yeah. In the last Afrobarometer which was done, the judiciary was one of the institutions that was engaged in high corruption. Politicians is like a cliche. Politicians are engaged in
the police, judiciary, police first, judiciary second, and then before, I think politicians were.
And that is extremely worrying. I mean, an institution that must determine and punish those who are engaged in corrupt acts. If they themselves are engaged in corruption, that is extremely worrying, and that is a problem. Look, I will tell you one thing. If you go to a ministry, I have had the privileged opportunity to be appointed a deputy minister before. Look, for a minister or a deputy minister or a political appointee to engage in a corrupt act in any state institution, he certainly cannot do that without the support or the aiding or the abetment of the public servants within the ministry. That's what happens. You cannot. I'll tell you a story. When I was reshuffled from Ministry of Information to Trade, and I'll tell you this, a true story. Then when I went to the ministry, then they gave me my office, then I started work. I was there, and then my secretary told me that one of the staff was looking for me. Oh, mentioned that the person was in the finance. I said, allow the person to come in. I don't want to say a lady or female because I just want to protect. When the person entered and said, oh, we heard very good stories about you at the Ministry of Information, how humble you were, you drive yourself, you don't have a police following you, a whole lot of. So I was just quiet. And then when she finished, she said, the reason why I came, I just come to thank you and to tell you that never sign anything that involves money. I'm telling you. I said, when you say involvement, I say, yes, anything that involves money, just mean it to the chief director. Let them take the decision. This was someone from the finance who came and gave me that information. I get in the point I'm making. So throughout my stay there, even things that were given, a minimum at which you sign, I never did that. And this was somebody who was engaged in the finance, what's the name? In the finance department at the ministry. So clearly, it means that she knew the loophole that could land you into trouble, or he knew the loopholes that could land you into trouble, and he or she could also know how you could do to circumvent the system to be able to make money. Unfortunately, because for politicians sometimes we behave very stupidly. When they aid you and support you to steal from the state, when there is problem, you don't hear of them. It is the politician who is taken to account. I don't know whether you get the point I'm making. You don't hear of them.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the biggest challenges we have as a state, and for huge reason, what's the name? Kenya.
Yeah.
These young people are engaged in that, is that they lost so much hope and confidence in the institutions. And that is why yesterday I was admonishing our colleagues. We have a moral duty. The partisanship sometimes in terms of the decisions we take in Parliament are just unacceptable. Look, come to the committee level. I have seen members of Parliament who at the committee, you know that this guy is sharp, but they have never spoken on the floor. So in assessing how effective such a member of Parliament is, they say he's not effective. Because you, the media, if I stand on the floor of Parliament to make a statement, or Honorable Okujeto makes a statement, or Honorable Afenyo makes a statement, it will become news to you because we have been engaged in the media landscape for a very long time. Yeah. But there are some members of Parliament who would have also made equal, maybe better statement than us on the floor. The media is not interested in it. That's one. And I do know that there are MPs who have become friends with media men. Whatever they say is in the news. Oh, I'm being honest with you.
That's true.
So you would find people describing some members of Parliament as members of Parliament who are not good because they have never, in fact, and I see this, or we have never heard him speak on the floor. But you come to because the public is not allowed to sit at committee. In fact, with the new standing orders now, the public is allowed to sit at any committee on condition that the approval is given by the chairman of the committee. And for me, that is a very positive thing. At least if the public is allowed to sit, and we're airing that, people would have appreciated, because the work of some MPs, about 70% of what we do in Parliament is done by the committees. In fact, Professor Ninsin and Co described the committees as the workshop of Parliament, because that is where almost all the work is done. So if you have people losing confidence and trust in state institutions, because the executive, for them, the confidence is already dissipated, then they then think that, oh, at least Parliament will give us some level of trust. I mean, Parliament can hold the executive accountable, and Parliament is also not doing that. Do you know Kenya? And I'll tell you one thing, because, and yesterday I made this point, because we are not assertive, because we have not been able to deliver to the expectation of the Ghanaian populace, even services that are supposed to be extended to members of Parliament, when the public hears, they get angry. One, the Ghanaian Parliament MPs were the least paid. The whole world. Togo, Benin, Chad, their members of Parliament are paid better than the MPs in Ghana. And I said the public is right in demanding that certain privileges should not be extended to us because we have not been able to deliver. We are expected to be independent. We are expected to hold the executive accountable. And the judiciary, and of course, they are also expected to hold us accountable as based on the separation of powers. But if we are not able to do that, what happens? So in Kenya, the people lost confidence in the state. You have Ruto, who came with lofty promises. And in fact, the first decision he took was that he reduced the expenditure, some state expenditures, and suddenly within the next 2 years or the next 1 year, he catapulted and ballooned it. Then the people realize the luxuries. Some people, when they have the opportunity and then they have money, they think that they must flaunt it. I don't know whether you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
So when you do this, when you flaunt the wealth you have made, maybe perhaps illegitimately, people will get angry. Look, I was entitled to a police officer as a deputy minister for trade, both information and trade.
Yeah.
I never had a police officer follow me anywhere. I never had a driver drive me. I was driving myself. And any time I wanted to travel outside Accra and I needed a driver, I would ask someone to get me a driver to drive me out. So because I was entitled to a security which I didn't, it was my choice. When we lost power, the Flagstaff House and government was supposed to pay me. It means that you are using your own security. They needed to pay for the security. On principle, I said no. I never went for that money because it was a choice, a decision I took that I didn't want to have a security. But I'll tell you one thing. There was a program I attended, and I'll conclude on this. Professor Kleptocracy was at that program. There were about 3 very old professors at the museum. It was something on. Then I went there with 2 of my colleagues. Then when we went, and they had, one was a female, had a police officer, another one was a male with a police officer. We're all members of parliament, and we're all representing our ministers. So when we went there, the 2 spoke before me. The male came and spoke. The police officer brought it in, put it on the podium. He spoke. After that, he came and picked. No, he stood behind him, actually. After that, he picked, and they left. The female, the same thing. When it got to my turn, I walked there alone, and I drive there alone. I didn't even go because I didn't have an official driver. I walked there alone, and I spoke. And me, I like speaking extempore. So when I finished speaking, and I'm saying this because it's true, something that happened. Professor Kleptocracy, if he's listening, he can attest to this. So when I finished the program, and then I was going to sit, there were 3 professors. They called me. Then I went, and one of them, he was an old professor. I just prayed that they are still alive. He said, introduced themselves, and I said, oh, Prof, I know Professor Kleptocracy. So I introduced the other professors. It was on science and something. And I said, look, we are all citizens of this country. We are sitting here. We've witnessed and we've observed what happened. Your colleagues, we've seen what happened. And we've seen what you did. Keep it up. And you think that we don't deserve to have security. To the extent that the police officers will have to stand behind them. Unless we don't have any, one of them, we don't have any problem if they bring it to the podium and put it and then go. They were observing. Now, in Kenya and in many African countries, people have observed things that way. So when they begin to see that there is some exceptional treatment that is given to a group of persons, in this case politicians, and because there is already a deep-seated resentment of politicians, you know, in those countries, people would do what they are doing. Yesterday, I warned my colleagues that what happened in Kenya, may God forbid, let us not be deluded into thinking that it can happen in Ghana. So that is why there is a popular proverb that one day your neighbor house is on fire, you should try and get water close by, because you can never tell what will happen. Because what happened in Kenya would serve as a catalyst to many people across the globe, particularly in Africa. And that is why those of us, may God forbid we don't pray such a thing happens here, but we need to change our ways of doing things. We need to stop plundering state resources just for our families. And in fact, the families also have a portion of the blame. You are appointed today. Your family members think that, oh, the scientists will say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Where are you going to get the money? Where? Look, so I'm saying that we knew politicians, and my brother in MPP, he knows some of the people I am talking about, who could not even rent rooms in 2016. 2016. But they are putting up mansions. They are engaged in things that you can't explain how they come by it. And because our security agencies too are not working. Because for someone to begin having such, you need to begin asking questions. We know journalists who suddenly have built houses when they have no known job. So if we want to talk about corruption, let's talk about it holistically. And I'm not saying that people should not focus on political corruption. Let's talk about it. The reason why the focus on political corruption, which is justified, is because we are the only group of persons who are given the exclusive authority to deal with anybody in society who is engaged in corruption.
Corruption, yeah.
And it is worse when it comes to the judiciary. Yeah. Because even when the politicians themselves join the party to loot, you have a moral duty and a responsibility to ensure that you deal with them to put bricks. But if you have the judiciary itself being corrupt, what do you expect? Last point has to do with the Afro Barometer. They've just released it. I haven't read it yet. I was listening to it on a radio station, CDD Afro Barometer, and they talk about how our democracy is actually eroding. And it is eroding because one of the reasons is corruption. One of the reasons is corruption. Right. So those who have made so much money and they think that they must flaunt it. Look, and it is not only limited to those in power, even those in opposition. If you have wealth that cannot be explained, I think that the security agencies should be interested in some of those things. Unfortunately, these are not the kinds of things we see. Look, I am not a saint, and I have said it time without number. But we all collectively must work in our religious groupings. You in your family, if you have money, it doesn't matter your age. You are always invited to the party to take decisions. Everybody will respect you. But if you have somebody in the family who is not rich, nobody respects him. So within our social setup,
if you don't have money,
exactly. Within the social setup, there's already discrimination within our families. Yeah. Within the religious groupings, you go to church, and I can bet my last penny. There is contribution. You give 1 million Ghana cedis. The next day you give 1 million Ghana cedis. Trust me, the next time the pastor would invite you, and they won't be interested in knowing, even in mosques, they won't be interested in knowing how you come by that money. They're interested in how you can support that mosque or that church, continuously. And that is where the problem also begins. Look, the position of Islam is very clear. That any money that you spent, you shall account for it on the day of judgment. And particularly, and what is even worrying, is when you spend money that belongs to several people. Ghana, we have a population, we are told, about 32 million or more. It means that if you take a money unjustifiably, that is not for you. On the day of judgment, you account to over 32 million Ghanaians. Our religious leaders, are they making their congregations to understand that whatever monies they take, they shall account? If you are a teacher and you force students to contribute some money to do ABC, you pay. If you are a journalist and then you go to a politician to take money to write a terrible story about somebody or to shield, somebody engaged in it, you shall account for it. So right. I think that we all need to collectively begin to change things. If you do not do that, the experiences in Kenya, I can bet my last penny, Kenya may not be the last country which will experience that in Africa. Right.
Thank you very much, Comrade Murtala Mohammed, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central Constituency. Elvis, it's been a while. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Dr. Elvis Bota.
It is well.
Dr. Bota, if you're not aware, Elvis has a PhD now, so congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, KY guys.
This guy, he likes books.
Can you imagine those senior brothers who have motivated and pushed and fought and beaten you to learn? You like books. Thanks for your contribution and inspiration to it. I thank all of you. I've come to meet two senior brothers after a long time of absence. I truly wish all of you well in your endeavors. As for the issues of Africa, and particularly what is happening in Kenya, I can't but associate myself entirely with, the earlier submissions my two senior brothers.
I thought you'd first say hi to the viewers. They've been asking about you. The viewers.
My viewers have missed me. I've missed them too. I've been in touch with you on this in the past couple of days.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much for all your prayers and support, viewers. But then clearly, I mean, it's so obvious that Africa has found itself on the slippery slopes of instability and confrontation owing to a number of reasons. The number one reason is the nature in which we have understood democracy in the first place. Anybody too closer to me knows I have always admired the style of governance in the Islamic republics for one clear reason. One, love for nation and people, which they uphold as an obligation bestowed onto leadership by Allah. Two, discipline, on the basis of the sound exegesis of morality in scripture. Now, you come to Africa, apart from the fact that we have, been colonized in every aspect of our lives, we've also been imposed upon with a system of governance called democracy, which we haven't entirely understood, or if we have understood, we have failed to implement it in a manner that sits well with our identity. Identity itself, a serious situation. So, in our practice of governance, what have we seen? Three cardinal manifestations of democracy or governance are manifest in most African societies. Number one is kleptocracy. Number two is plutocracy. Number three is kakistocracy. These three funny terms are the problems in Africa, and the earlier we start studying them, the better. Kleptocracy is simply government of the thieves. When you have governments that have purposed to steal, and that is where the element of corruption comes in. And by the mention of government, it extends beyond politicians. And you see this erroneous conclusion that government means politicians and corruption is akin only to politicians. It's wrong. Go to the ministries, go to the agencies, deal with the bureaucrats, and your letter will not move to the next stage until an envelope passes into another person's hand. That is the reality out there. So you see our bureaucrats, most of them are living beyond the means of their salaries. Where is the excess income coming from? Theft. The arbitrary, application of state authority. Now, when people steal in government, what they do is that they amass so much wealth that it will become difficult for you to beat them in any contest for a position. Yeah. So in every election, you will find majority of winners being those who have had the privilege of stealing and looting from the state, entrenching their influence because they are able to what? They are able to give. So you find a system of government emerging as one that looks almost equal to government of the wealthiest. That is plutocracy, where the rich rule. Money is why they have won elections. If I may borrow the terms of PLMO Lumumba, he says that, look, the fact that you have won an election does not change anything at all in you. So then, if you are rich and empty-headed and you win an elections, you are only a victorious fool. That is what it means. It doesn't change anything at all. Now, when people practice plutocracy, what you then realize is that in most of the instances, if you are not lucky, it is empty-headed people, most of whom are ignorant, most of whom lack experience, most of whom lack good education, okay, who by dint of the foot soldier activities rose into all kind of business, Mongols, made money, and have occupied sensitive positions in government and in political parties. So what do you find? It leads to a situation where the dumbest in society are privileged to rule the rest of the people. And when you have a government like that, which is kakistocracy, you have difficulty with others who are learned within the same political class, finding it difficult to fit in. Because anytime you speak the truth, they try to tag you differently for society not to appreciate you. I have had arguments with people from both sides of the political divide about some politicians, including Honorable Murtala here, where society, without knowing you, the guy have never met you beyond seeing your face on television, and assumes, as for Honorable Murtala, he's arrogant, he's disrespectful, he's this, he's that. He hasn't met Honorable Murtala Muhammad at all. Anywhere their paths have never crossed. Now, it means that someone is telling them stories, and all some of us have suffered it. Oh, he's young but arrogant. He's young, he doesn't respect. To the extent that they can attack you and attack your academic credentials, your professional credentials, and attack just to let society know that they shouldn't even listen to you in the first place, to attack your integrity and credibility. Why? Because you are not only learned, you've chosen not to do things. You are defying the normative practice that have been entrenched. So to drive himself, to decide, look at the things he said this morning, to decide not to use the police, a lot of privileges he's entitled to, he has decided not to. Those politicians who fear to be murdered or killed, what are they running away from? He's been driving, ever since I knew Honorable Murtala, he's been driving himself. We haven't heard he's been attacked. So your brothers and friends and others who beyond state security still form their own security agencies or groups to police them around, what are they afraid? What actually are they afraid about? It means the man must have been doing something terrible. And he knows that his activities are attracting enemies. That is the problem we have with African politics. You vote a broke guy. He mentioned how, you remember when they got angry and I was mentioning some people whom we bought Kenke for. My brother has been with the NPP. He knows the NPP in and out. And we have seen same with the NDC too. People you buy Kenke for when they are hungry. People whose weddings and engagement you couldn't find pure water to drink are the owners of real estate in Accra now. Any land you want to buy is in their names already. They bought it. They have bought lands, including lands that belong to other people. Now, that story, it creates hate and resentment. And the masses are seeing. You were eating gobe under a certain kiosk. Suddenly, the guy can't sit in the open to eat. What is that? Is that leadership? That you separate and segregate from the people and lord over them? So, in a lot of African countries, you have very poor people who have, by providence, risen into positions of power. And instead of advancing the mighty hand of God upon them to reflect on the others, they depart from same. And it's all about themselves. So when you have these three systems of negative governance, highly interwoven into each other and operating within a particular political landscape, what you can expect is intolerance from the citizens who must have been fed up. Because actually, the three of us seated here, privileged to be on national television, people know our stories. People know our beginning. Our parents are still alive. People know the nature of our family houses. Friends and families know how you could not buy porridge with granite in school. So how can I be pretending suddenly to be too rich just because my party is in power? No. So when you do that, you have a situation where the masses will say that no, but we've known this guy. We've known that guy. When did he finish national service? And what work did he do after national service? To amass such wealth that commands society to give him all manner of titles. So what do you expect the rest of us to do? To come after you. So the happenings in Kenya is just a microcosm of the actual scenario within the broader African governance structure. Because you have an increasingly elite political class, and there is a direct correlation between their level of growth and the level of decline of the masses in poverty. That inverse relationship. So at any point in time, you can be sure that people are unhappy, but are just tolerating. Now, there is a limit to tolerance, right? There's a limit to tolerance, where people know that now poverty and hunger is killing us. So if we go and fight and die, there's nothing wrong with it. After all die be die, which has become a popular philosophy, and I believe in that philosophy. All die be die. Whether hunger kills me or I die protesting for good governance, at the end of the day, man can die once. Now, in Kenya, more of the situation have to do with what now manifests as hypocrisy on the part of the president, Ruto. Ruto, a man of the Zongos, who in history is the first president in Kenya who came from the masses. The others are people who have been privileged to have been second, third generation politicians. Their fathers have made it already in politics, made the name, made the money, made the wealth. And so they capitalize on that dynastic practice to rise into prominence. And in fact, they were born into prominence, and so they rise on the shoulders of same into power. Ruto didn't come through that tradition. It is why his victory was victory for the masses. His campaign was campaign for the masses. And so the bounty of the victory must not just be Ruto's, but it must be for who? The masses. Who stood for you? In the vanguard of the forward march to freedom, his victory in that election was perceived as another renewed independence, okay, of Kenya. Now, with that level of expectation, with that high expectation, you can be sure that people want to see forthrightness in you. Now, he started well, slashed budgets, actually closed down some agencies, ended up creating more agencies and escalating more budgets than you did just a year ago. What do you take the people for? That you were pretentious all this while? If there are issues, if there are fundamental difficulties feeding into the situation, what do? Public engagement, stakeholder dialogue, very critical in governance. But most of the times, our governments don't do that in Africa. And it is so also in Ghana. They don't engage even the particular political, organizations that got them in government. They don't engage the grassroots, nothing. And that is where apathy comes from and cause ruling governments to lose elections. Now, at the end of the day, in the Ruto's example, some of us suspect, and for me as, someone interested in international politics and diplomacy, we are not oblivious of the continuous neo-colonialist antics of the countries of the West. The global North has purposed and have casted same in rocks that they must drain and squeeze the global South. And now emerging economies within the global South, i.e. China, and India, rising highly in global affairs, and even other places like, Brazil, are emerging economies. Though in the global South, they are leveraging on that economic prowess to siphon resources from the rest of the vulnerable African states, if we have to call it vulnerable. Even though I think stupidity is why we are unable to thrive. We are actually not vulnerable because we control 68.7%, that's 70% of the world's arable farmlands and resources. How can we be vulnerable? 90% of global natural resources are in Africa. How can we be vulnerable? Yet, somebody seated in Europe, who can talk without air passing through his nose, actually says we are vulnerable, so we must depend on him to bring us aid. And because our leaders are very sensible, they actually believe in these theories. So Ruto may have been going through a situation where the imperialist is entrenching their metropolis in Kenya to ensure that they make things difficult for Ruto, so he loses the next election because he was speaking a language they didn't like. So a lot of aids and grants that must go to his government have been cut off by the international community just to make sure that he suffocates. What are you supposed to do? That should even compel you for prudent expenditure. That should compel you to engage the youth. But
he has messed up himself.
But he ended up messing up himself. The other day he was in Haiti for the wrong reasons. He has always been everywhere lately for the wrong reasons, and you wonder whom his cabinet are and what they are doing. So the Gen Zs, sometimes, silly as we think they are, have proven to the world that the fact that we are Gen Zs, we are not as foolish as you think. We are wise and we are willing to die for our country because we are the future, and we won't let you create problems for us and go. That is why they've been protesting, which has been a very good example for African youth. Yes, positive deviance. Demonstrations are not a crime in our laws. Can we invite a lot of youth across African countries to engage in lawful demonstrations against bad governance? Can we do that? If we can do that, it will help. And I think that it is ripe, extremely ripe, that we deal with people in government who think that they have arrived. Let us know that they haven't started the journey. It's going to help the continent. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Elvis Bota. Let me do a few messages before I come to Nanaya Sapon. Great submission by Dr. Bota. My regards to Honorable Mutala, my house prefect at Tatco. And kudos to Pan-African TV from Sankana Kofi Wayo. Sankana Kofi Wayo, Richard Pali. Right. So, yep, let me do this one. Elvis. I can never stop appreciating your forthrightness and immense sense of objectivity. God bless you. A true living reincarnation of Uncle Kwesi Pratt. Lord, but Uncle Kwesi Pratt is still around. You are saying somebody is a reincarnation. Good morning, Bless. I agree with Elvis on corruption and the instructions aside politicians. The offices of Ghana Education Service in Ghana are major places for corruption. If you don't pay, you won't get your promotion. Change of management unit, upgrading, etc. are all at controller. Meanwhile, people are paid salary for these works. Sometimes you have to do it through the back door by paying 1,000 cedis and over before you get it. Corruption is everywhere in Ghana. Thank you. Living Bed from Akimoda sent this one. Thank you. Good morning, Bless. Please reduce the time on African issues. There's a reason we are called Pan-African Television. Good morning, Bless. Help me to welcome Elvis and my mentor, Honorable Mutala. Please, the land grabbing in Tamale is unprecedented and no one is saying anything. We need a savior. Eliasu from Tamale Central. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. I'll do the remaining messages later. Let me come to Senanaya Sapon to also take his thoughts on the Kenyan situation.
Oh, I thought he was actually the first.
No, he wasn't.
No, I have no spoken.
Then I dissociate completely.
When you came, your blood was hot. So
when I got to the reception, I saw you talking.
No, we're speaking about
we're speaking on other matters. But
perhaps the butterfly and how
you are my
yes.
You are my senior, so why not?
Come on, you are the senior. Don't do this on national television.
Unfortunately, Uktala attended one of the less privileged schools in Tamale, but thank God for his life. He's been able to come up.
So his attempt to even make that statement should tell you. It's a classical story of the woman who never owned a child. He was insistent that they should. The school is called Sanargo Experimental. They sell Tubani and Kulkuli around our school.
You attended Sanargo Experimental?
He did. I attended Great Ghana School.
Any school that starts with great.
Then Great Accra.
Now we have greater capacity.
But you see, Kenya can happen anytime in Ghana. I said it on one of the platforms. I said that sometimes we refuse to agree and come to a realization that in terms of the elements that can trigger what happened in Kenya, Ghana is sitting on a time bomb. We don't have to mince words. We should come to a point where we have to redefine the pointers of what forms corruption in this country. If you are not able to have an absolute definition of what corruption is, we would always come sit around this table to discuss. What is happening in Kenya is the people telling government that we are tired of your pretense in fighting corruption. We are tired of your pretense in trying to deal with standards of living. We are tired of the pretense of being on the same level with us. But yet, we are dying each and every day out of hunger. You see, we are only talking about Kenya because there has been a continuity of they sort of resisting, for lack of a better expression, the oppressor's rule. But if the labor force in Ghana had continued their actions of strike as against what was happening to our hotels, and if it had traveled beyond a week, the citizens would have risen up. I don't know who advised the government to pull out. I don't know what sort of security intelligence went into it, but kudos to anybody who gave them that information. Because teachers were on strike, nurses and doctors were on strike, civil and public servants were on strike. Everything was at a halt. And you think that couldn't have triggered what is happening in Kenya, in Ghana? When Honorable Mutala was ending his submission, he says that we know of people in this country who, before coming into government, couldn't afford 3 square meal. They lived in Accra and they could not afford to rent single rooms. They were living with friends.
Like you also know them.
Yeah, we know them, of course. You understand?
In fact, your former party, sorry.
That's what people in his he hasn't gone to another party. He's gone on a movement.
You know, we know them. We know those who used to come to us for some money to buy food. We know. And today they own mansions. Now, how do we deal with this? See, I would always make reference to the Great Transformational Plan because it is important that whatever you intend to do, however you intend to tackle the situation, you pen it down so that Ghanaians can hold you accountable. In recent times, somebody said that the current president has stated somewhere that he could lay his presidency on the line to fight Galamsey. Yeah. Then when the person has ended, he was asked, where did he write it? It could have just been a mere statement. But when you have penned it down and people can pick and make references, then it means that you could be held accountable. If you go to the Great Transformational Plan, the governance cluster, one of the first pillars Alan John Kojo talks about is corruption. I just want to read just 3 pointers, then we will discuss in some few minutes we go. Now I'll start with this one, that amend existing asset declaration rules to strengthen disclosure and introduce new forms of asset tracking and recovery, including but not limited to instruments such as lifestyle audit for tracking unexplained wealth and recovery of proceeds of corruption. So if you could not afford a rent yesterday and you are in government, or you have even been employed as a civil or public servant, and you are able to now afford a 4 or 5 bedroom house in Spintex or at the cantonments, we should be able to audit. And that is what Alan is talking about. If you could not have 20,000 Ghana cedis in your account, and after being employed by the Ministry of Finance on grade 1 or whatever they call it, and tomorrow you have 100,000 Ghana cedis in your account, you should be able to explain to Ghanaians how you got that 100,000 Ghana cedis. If you could not afford an Opel Cadet, and in 1 year into office, you have bought yourself a V8, your wife a V8, your in-law a V8, you should be able to explain. And if you're not able to explain, we will trigger to recall all of those properties and assets. People are living such a lifestyle in our society that they are not able to even explain. They themselves wake up in the morning and they are scared of themselves. I remember a story about a young man who woke up in the morning and picked a bucket to go and fetch water. He had forgotten that where he was living now, he walks into his bathroom and he has shower, because all his life he has been fetching water. So you wake up one morning and you are living in luxury. Yes, I'm a Christian, I believe in God's blessings. But I think God himself would even question you how you got those blessings. The Bible talks about God giving some people 1 talent, another person 2 talents, another person 5 talents. If you read further, those talents were supposed to put into use for it to yield profits. He didn't just wake up one day and give somebody 20. No. If you go back to the GTP, and this is where it's interesting, it says that empower civil anti-corruption organizations and strengthen partnership between civil society and related public agencies by providing direct and indirect support, including but not limited to access to public funds. This is what Alan is talking about. Now you become an enemy when you come to sit on a national television and you talk about corruption and you begin to pinpoint people. Honorable is a parliamentarian. He will be honest that even when state agencies have bills and they present to Parliament for select committees to work on, at a certain point in time, those agencies have to finance their weekends that they have to stay to work on those documents. He's here. And I've always asked myself, doesn't Parliament have a budget for this? If they have budget constraints, are they not ways to deal with that? Is it part of their what was the book you work with? standing orders that agencies should do that. Pay for their hotels.
No.
Pay for their fuel.
Let me, I wouldn't have interjected.
Yes.
You see, there's a challenge with regards to the releases of funds to Parliament. And I don't know what information you have.
That's what I'm coming to.
I'm saying
in fact,
that
it's for the challenge.
So
it's the reason of the
agency,
challenge I'm coming to. And that is why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
Because there are these challenges that brew the corruption. You understand? They talk about separation of powers. Now, the Minister of Finance coming to Parliament for his budget to be approved needs Parliament on his side. He's from the executive. He needs the legislation. The legislature's on his side. Now, he comes to Parliament, and on arrival, the Speaker of Parliament takes him to his chamber with the senior members, the minority, from both minority and majority. They sit him down. You are from the executive. Have you seen our budget? He says yes. And when are we getting it? Now, if you delay your explanation, you sit in the Speaker's chamber for 3 hours because they will not even attend to you. The judiciary also needs the executive to be able to get their releases. And so at that point in time, they also need them on their side. When you have called the executive, they would also put to the table their demands. I did a small law program, and there was this topic about separation of powers. I said there can never be separations of powers in this jurisdiction, where executives need the legislature, where they also need the judiciary. One would need the other in any ways, and the way and manner in which they will strangle you at the point where you need them is where the issue now comes. Are we able to deal with that? If the leader himself, the president, whosoever, just as Honorable suggested, when he was deputy minister, he took certain decisions. The great transformation of the point one in dealing with the corruption is that we will demonstrate a leadership of a personal integrity and political will to fight corruption and take decisive action against politically exposed persons involved in corruption-related activities. The lifestyle of the leader plays a major role. When the Kenyan president wanted to come to power, he spoke a lot. Some few days into power, he cut down all their wages, all their allowances and everything, their budget, the executives. A year or so into power, it was quadrupled.
With all his 7 children now having very lofty jobs.
Positions in government.
Very heavy positions in government. He has 7 children, and all of them root to
leadership of personal integrity, where a president's son or daughter is able to bid for a contract, and he or she is the only one in Ghana or in Kenya or wheresoever that can do it, with no level of expertise or experience whatsoever. Where a minister of state is able to acquire lands at very strategic locations. People who, after national service, have not done any job in their lives. Leadership of personal integrity. You go to a funeral, and a minister, the presidency, the judiciary, the parliamentarians, on behalf of parliament, would come and make donations in hundreds of cedis.
Thousands.
One funeral. Oh, he was a friend of us in Parliament. We were together. 200,000 Ghana cedis. One funeral. The presidency would come. Now I think the least they've been doing is 50,000.
In Kenya?
I mean, can't Ghana was Kenya. Yeah, can't Ghana Kenya. They Kenya.
I thought we were still discussing Ruto.
And yeah, it's intertwined.
I just wanted clarity.
No, it's intertwined.
No, let's move on.
That's why I said the preamble to this was that whatever that is happening in Kenya, the elements, the indicators that triggered it are clear here. If a president's child is riding in Kenya with a motorcade, same is happening in Ghana. It's happening in Ghana. They work with security.
Then we have to organize some funerals and invite these people. 50,000, 200,000.
Get any of your family.
I think I need to organize a funeral.
I know. This is reality. So if we are not able to have a lifestyle audit, if we are not able to empower civil society, and above all, if the leader himself has no integrity or is not ready to fight to defend his integrity, then we should forget it. Alan Chomantin on one of the networks stated, and he has repeatedly said, that he is not corrupt, he has never been corrupt, and he will never be corrupt. Ron Mutala is here. Let putting politics aside, the color of partisan whatsoever aside. He's been in Parliament. He's been a member of the Trade and Industry Tourism Committee. And he can state for a fact that if we are looking for one fine gentleman in this country, of course, my brother from the NPP has worked with Alan Chomantin at some level before. If you're looking for one gentleman in this country who can stand the test of time to say that in his entire public life, he has never been corrupt, and there is no trace of corruption that can be traced to him or that can be led to him, then it is Alan John Kojo Chomantin. This is not a matter of speech. He has demonstrated it. I mean, there have been times that people fought him in his former party because they think that he is too rigid when it comes to certain principles. Alan, the only in the way and they fought him. But it is not about you as an individual. It is about protecting the nation, protecting what we have, making good use of what we have, preserving it, and ensuring that it yields fruits for the next generation. Whatever that is happening in Kenya, my brother, of course, when you look at what is happening in Nigeria, I don't know if you followed the recent happenings in Nigeria. The president had to actually fire some people and replace certain, including the person who was in charge of pensions. And this is real. And in Ghana, you would have ministers of state. You would have politicians defending matters. You are going to sell a hotel. Everybody is talking about it. Then you have a minister of state go to parliament to respond to a question or whatsoever and defend what we, the people who put you there, are saying we don't want. Then you come to tell us that the National Pension Regulatory Authority, within a matter of 2 days or so, have so much studied the document that they have given approval. You have no, you lack certain knowledge or certain expertise. For that matter, you have employed or recruited a transactional advisor, paid him almost $500,000 equivalent in Ghana cedis, which is about 7.5 million Ghana cedis. The person advises you to tell you this is a bad deal. Then after which, you still go ahead with the deal. And you tell me this is not causing financial loss to the state. Then what is it? 7.5 million cedis. Do we know what it could have done? Do we know the jobs it could have created for the many young Ghanaians out there who after school do not have decent jobs to do? Do we know what 7.5 million Ghana cedis could have done for the masses who are not able to afford a 3-square meal? Do we know what 7.5 million Ghana cedis could have done in my village in Dominase, where the SDA hospital that has been there for so many years is almost collapsing? And we have people who would bath in the morning, put on makeup, go and sit on television and on radio to defend it. And you think Kenya cannot happen in Ghana?
It can happen. Right.
You don't pray we get to that.
Of course.
Oh no, you see, there is this joke that sometimes certain things happen and then you blame the devil and the devil will go to God and say, God, this one I wasn't there. No, you see the signs are clear. The signs are clear. Honorable, when you go to your constituency in Tamale, I have lived in Tamale all my life, where the health insurance building is, the office. Down there to your left, they were all government bungalows. They have sold everything. Listen,
they for 6,000 cedis.
Oh, Minya, Kalana Sports Stadium. They have sold all the land around the sports stadium, and I am hearing there are attempts to actually sell the stadium itself.
As a matter of fact, the Calendar Sports Stadium, I was approached when they demarcated the land they did there. I was approached by a chief. I did something for that chief, and then he asked me to come, and then he gave me some of the lands. Honestly, on principle, I didn't go. I'll tell you one thing. When the state decides to return a land to traditional authorities, and you buy it, we don't have any problem. You are not violating any law. Because our land laws are very clear.
Of course.
The state can acquire any land. In fact, sometimes compulsory acquisition from traditional authorities. But when the state is no longer having the use for which the land was acquired, the law says they return it to the traditional authority. When you buy the way I live at Norib village, Norib, you know Norib village?
I know
it was initially by a state and international.
Yes.
They return it to the chiefs, and then we got it from the chief. There is a land. When I started making noise about this, the land grabbing in Tamale, someone said I had a land at Kiture. It was returned to the chiefs. In fact, that was in 2009. If I tell you how much I paid for the land. So they returned them. Our worry is when you have a state land, which you use is still relevant, then you go and buy the West Hospital.
They've sold all the land. They've sold all that.
The West Tamale population is escalating. The West Hospital is expanding. Bungalows that were meant for
doctors
health workers,
and nurses.
they have sold everything. You know what they are doing? They are building morning, evening, throughout the night. My position, and I have stated it publicly, NDC wins elections, we will demolish them. The prisons,
Why would you demolish them? Give them to doctors.
No, demolish them. You see, you know the prisons.
Yeah.
If you know Tamale, if you know Tamale very well, the prisons is on the compound of the Tamale.
Of the Tamale, yes.
So their accommodation are only like 800 meters away what do you know?
Yes, just behind.
They have sold all.
Just behind.
Even up to 800 million.
They have sold all.
It's even a security threat.
Yes, so it means that officers would have to rent somewhere. They raised the issue. I complained to Honorable Abu Jinapo, and he told me to write. I wrote officially to him, and nothing. In fact, I filed an urgent question. He was supposed to answer the question last week. No, I mean, this one is not his fault because of the challenges we had in Parliament. Hopefully, that question should be asked today, because I want to find out who is giving the authority. And it's been confirmed that the MPP parliamentary candidate for Tamale South is the one profiting from it. And it took an MPP communicator who sat on local television and stated that the guy was the one behind it. He has never denied that. GBC, Radio Savannah, the GBC Plus have all been sold.
It's just like with the station and where the
They've all been sold. And I'm told that they were part of it, they wanted to sell. The GBC, the director said no. So you see, I'm saying that all of these things are happening. When the state decides to return the land to the traditional authorities, and we don't have any problem. But you have state lands that are still in use. Look at the West Hospital. The hospital is expanding, population is increasing. Where is there and then you come and buy that land and develop. Are you I mean, it's unquestionable. Yeah. And they are developing with speed that finish it fast before we have elections.
They are doing that because you see they know that you would add human face to it, whoever the leader is.
That is a problem.
But you cannot, if you know Tamale very well, the West Hospital. Yeah. It's I mean, it's just like it's in the heart of Tamale.
Yes.
Wow. That is where most of the references, referrals are made.
Yeah.
Right. I'll do a few more messages, then we can proceed to our next topic for conversation. Good morning, Bless. The most annoying thing in life is when someone is serving you with mediocrity and poking fun at you. The most shameless misleader I have ever experienced is Nana Ado. You didn't tell me your name and where you're sending the message from. Thank you, by the way. It says, my name is Moni Park from Bimbago. Good morning, Bless. The indicators are clear that this Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government has woefully failed this country and its citizenry. But what pains me more is the NDC is so silent on nursing training allowances and permanent posting of nurses who are at home for 4 years now. Meanwhile, the NPP government used the nurse unemployment and nurse allowances against the NDC in 2016. Okay, thank you so much for your message. Good morning, Bless, and to your panelists. We are suffering because of inflation, cost of goods. As a Ghanaian worker, we need cola, cost of living allowance to curb it a little. Dan from Wa, thank you, Dan, for your message. This one here says, Honorable Mutala taught me in SHS. Bisco Daniel was okay. So you taught there as well. I see.
We used to teach extra classes. When I went to Legon, every semester break, you have to go home and teach. Because we also benefited from same classes which were taught by Honorable Haruna Idusu, Dr. Anta, and many of them. Dr. Mustafa, they used to teach.
I see. Okay, let me do a few more messages. Good morning, Pan Africa TV. It is notable that the Gen Zs have come of age with numerous technologies and events shaping their worldview. But I think that Gen Zs in Kenya are ahead of Ghanaians. In fact, it's time to rise to chase these money-hungry jackals in our society out. Okay, thank you very much. You didn't tell me your name. Okay, Eric from Japon. Thank you, Eric, for your message. Good morning, Bless. I like today's panel. Thanks for the vibrant team. But please tell Elvis to be more regular. Thank you. Seidu from Tamale sent this one. Elvis, Munsempa, like the accounts will say. Bless the protest in Kenya with relativity or with relatively better economy should have happened long ago in Ghana, even before Kenya, but for the gentility of the NDC as the biggest political opposition party and ineptitude of organized labor that eventually had awakened from its self-imposed slumber on the controversial sales of the Senate hotels. Just imagine it was the NDC in power under JM with all the current negativities, including corruption, narcissism, and nepotism, and with the NPP under Nanado as opposition leader. And what would have happened? Think about it. Shalom. All right, Dennis Wakwete sent this one. But let me take time to do this birthday wish. Na Heshibalo, the first Choko Chimuna Ublaye Amanye. Today is your birthday. Happy birthday to you, Mommy. We pray that you continue to stay in good health. May the rest of your life be the very best of your life. Now let's proceed to our next topic for conversation. The Vice President has been wanting to debate former President John Dramani Mahama. It appears that his wish may come to fruition. We are hearing that the Institute of Economic Affairs would be organizing a presidential and vice presidential debates, and so but it won't be limited to only former President John Dramani Mahama and the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. We are hearing that all the other political parties would be part. So it means that Honorable Alan Kojo Chairman Ting would be part. Nana Kwame Bediakun, I don't know, but he may also be part. Yes. Dr. Ayariga, yes, APC may also be part. But I don't know if former President Mahama would be open to joining. I understand there have been instances where he has also called for a debate. I think in 2016 he called for a debate, and then the flag bearer at the time of the NPP, he bluntly refused and asked him to debate the Ghanaian people and not him. So I don't know what the position of the former president in relation to this particular debate would be, but I'm sure that Ghanaians would actually love to hear what policies they have, maybe superior policies they have for this country. Let me start again with you briefly. We do not have so much time, so let's try.
Well, first and foremost, the IEA, I have never trusted the IEA. Let me be very clear on this. The IEA was created by the current EC boss husband, and she was working with the IEA. I mean, she is an MPP activist. There is no question at all about that. She demonstrated that even when she was at the IEA, and still demonstrates that the IEA was vociferous on many issues. When MPP came to power, we don't seem to be seeing such. But I think that they have had some change in leadership. Maybe perhaps the perception some of us have about the IEA may change. In any case, in 2016, the NDC President Mahama called for a debate, even 2020. And then the MPP flatly said they were not going to engage in any debate. Dr. Bawumia is calling President Mahama for a debate. I thought that he should be so much interested in salvaging the little credibility left, if there is any. I mean, what is President Mahama coming to engage him in a debate for? I don't have any problem. I can't speak for President Mahama. President Mahama has officials who speak for them. So I won't be able to sit here to tell you whether President Mahama would engage in the debate or not. I believe that he will look at the prospects. He will look at many other things if he needs to be there. President Mahama has never run away from a debate. If President Mahama decides not to debate you, Dr. Bawumia, because you met some people somewhere and you are asking that, throwing a challenge to President Mahama for a debate, I don't think that he needed to respond to that. Maybe with this IEA organization, which may be structured, he may consider or not. That one, exclusively depends on President Mahama. But come to think of it, Dr. Bawumia has been lying. And the man, sometimes I wonder whether when he goes to sleep, he doesn't ponder over the lies he tells the people of this country. You remember when they, unveiled NAPO? He made some statements that I felt that were profound. He said that one of the reasons why he nominated NAPO is because of his profound legislative experience. And I said, okay, if that's the case, how about Chi? Because if you are nominating someone because of his profound legislative experience, Che is more experienced from the same region, understands the work than many people. In fact, if you don't mention Che in this current parliament, number one, you mention him number two. So that argument of nominating Napo because of his profound legislative experience is bonkers. It's complete balderdash. And again, he also said something on that day. He said that they have outperformed the NDC in all aspects of the economy. And he said jobs. And I said, this man doesn't fear God. Why? Go to the statistical service. The record we had when the NDC handed over power to Nanado and Dr. Baumia, unemployment was 8.4. Today, by government's own figures, unemployment is 14.7. That's the economy. 2, debt to GDP under the NDC was a little over 60%. Today, it's over 100%. Okay? Inflation was 15%. In fact, inflation rose under this government up to almost 50%. And even coming down, it is way higher than the NDC bequeathed to this government. Okay? Now, a gallon of petrol under the NDC was sold at 14 cedis. Today, a liter of petrol is sold above 15 cedis. And you need about 4 liters to give you 1 gallon. So if a gallon of petrol was sold at 14 cedis under NDC, today a liter is sold at 15 cedis. Again, how much was a price of kinky? How much was it? What was the rate of the cedi and the dollar to the cedi? And you see, and that brings me to a point. Someone sent an audio to me about a lady who did a video, I guess, on TikTok, and saying that government was seeking to reduce cement prices, and Honorable Mutala, absolutely ignorant. And that woman, maybe perhaps she's just doing politics. Our argument has always been consistent. If government is seeking to control prices of cement, trying to deflect the narrative and create the impression that the reason why cement prices are higher is because of the makings of the cement manufacturers. Yes. And our position is no. Don't try to hide what you are supposed to do. Because over 95% of the product they use to produce cement are all imported. Over 95% are all imported. Clinker, 23 different taxes have been imposed by this government on clinker alone. Now, when they bring their goods to the port, they are given only 5 days, and beyond that, there is demurrages. Meanwhile, the inability to clear the items there are not fault of theirs. Because they are using one dock to do that. So I can bring in my inputs. I have paid all my taxes. I have paid everything. But I can't have them cleared because they are using one dock. So the reason why there is a delay is not my fault. It is a fault of government, which is a structural challenge. Yet they are made to pay demurrages. Are you getting what I'm saying? Now the cedi to the dollar is now 15% plus. Meanwhile, you took it below 4%. Sorry, 4 cedis to $1. Now it is 15 cedis plus. So if over 95% of what they use to produce cement are all imported, and you are seeking to control, our position is that, look, reduce the import duties you charge on their inputs. If you reduce it, the demurrages, extend the days, because it is not their fault that they have the items there. Maybe extend it to 2 weeks or even more than about 10 days. If you do that, the cost will reduce. If you reduce the import duties, the cost of producing, no, I'm coming. The cost of producing will reduce. If you work on the cedi, such that the cedi value will come at par or even reduce. And you see, and I say this, and I say with seriousness, I'm happy he's here. The Honorable Alan Chirmantin had been a minister for trade before. Under the NDC, we were spending a little below $500 million importing rice and poultry products into this country. Today, we are spending over $2 billion importing the very things we have the capacity to produce. So our argument on this cementing is that if you are able to even reduce the importation of rice and poultry products, you will save this country over $1 billion. And that will help to shore up the value of the city. So the people are saying that our argument is, yes, cement producers also contribute in what? In increasing the prices of cement. But government role is over 90%. And therefore, if you are seeking to control, why are you not telling the public the truth? That if I reduce the import duties, if I increase the number of days under which a demurrages will be affected, if I work on the cedi to increase its value against the dollar, they would have no other option than to reduce the cement. You know what is happening? With what government is now doing, the fear is that they will produce cement that is not quality. We had an engagement with Standard Authority, and the Standard Authority said 3 Chinese companies, one in Ashanti, other 2 is it in Central or Western, they produce cement that is inferior. Now you buy such a cement, put up a structure, it will collapse, people will die. So when we make this argument, then that very ignorant woman and those who agree with her will go and think that we are against government of seeking to reduce prices of cement. What we are saying is tell the people the truth. Let them rebut, also do what we are supposed to do. But you see, all these things borders on the economy. And Dr. Bawumia was the chairman of the economic management. He's still the chairman of the economic management team. President Nanado told everybody when they questioned Dr. Bawumia's, eligibility to be nominated as a running mate, because he doesn't belong to the MPP. Dr. Bawumia had been a beneficiary of the PNDC. Even the scholarship for him to go to study was not a scholarship of academic excellence. It was because of the proximity the father had with the PNDC. They create the impression as if he was such an outstanding student. He got a scholarship under the PNDC. Are you getting the point I'm making? If you read Chasing the Elephant to the Bush, you heard what Gloria Akufu said about his father. Gloria Akufu went ballistic, that he had never belonged to the MPP. Now, when the MPP people raised these questions, maybe Dr. Bota, they all would have raised this question. When they raised the question, President Nanado said he nominated him as his running mate because of the economy. And therefore, he is the economic paragon. He has all it takes to solve the economic challenges of this country. So suddenly when the economy is going bad, this man is telling us that, oh no, it is not my fault. So I am saying that even debating President Mahama on the economy, President Mahama doesn't need to be an economist. And that is why some of us said, look, we can engage him in a debate on any issue. And President Mahama and the NDC position is that debate with the economy, solve the problem, reduce the unemployment, reduce inflation, reduce the debt to GDP, reduce the prices of fuel, reduce what is so good about economy than ensuring that your policies inure to the benefit of the Ghanaian people. So if you are not able to do that and you are calling President Mahama for a debate, I think that is extremely needless. So just to conclude, I can't speak for President Mahama whether he would want to participate in this debate, but I believe that President Mahama, a very smart visionary leader, he will look at all the pros and cons. If it would inure to the benefit of the Ghanaian people, why not? He would engage. He had been engaged in debates before. But if he thinks that it is not about that, you should focus on solving the economy, President Mahama would not, hesitate to avoid such a debate. But I don't have any problem at all with the IEA calling for a debate, even though
you don't trust them.
I don't trust them.
Right.
Maybe with the new leadership now, it was created by Jean Mensah and their husband.
Right.
And Jean Mensah is an MPP activist.
Right. Thank you.
Bota was smiling.
Thank you, Elvis.
He'd been a member of their party.
Elvis.
This is the Ganasco in him. From IEA and debate. He looked at his time. Immediately he checked his time and started talking. I knew this was what was going to happen. But that can be understood by opposition parties and their style of communication.
But you are a government. You are in government. You are in opposition.
It's okay to.
We are just like you.
To debate. It's okay to debate in that manner. Now, that debate is significantly different from the kind of debate we are expecting from our presidential candidates. I believe that it is good to have people contest politically on the basis of ideas, novelty and innovation towards the country's most pressing challenges, and to be able to give a signal of the kind of future we want to carve. My problem, however, with our Ghanaian system has always been the fact that after all of these talks, what? a nation that has no national development plan needs no debate, because at the end of the day, they tell us one thing and they do the other. That is what has happened.
I'm not cutting you.
That is.
I'm not cutting. When they submitted, the president, they've done another, the development plan about 50-50 and 2050 something. I get what I'm saying. Now,
like Ghana at 100 or something.
Now, when they submitted
Yes.
it, to the president, just about 2 days today, do you know what he said? The appeal they made is that all political parties should tailor their manifestos, into what is
to
captured
align
in
with what is
something that
captured in that, yeah.
he said that they are arrogant. He sees that as that posted demonstrate arrogance. But these were his words to determine to political parties how they should fashion their manifesto. So just so that you can understand the psyche of the president, he doesn't believe in any national development plan.
I'm making my input nonetheless. His
but
opinion doesn't matter.
talked about that.
His opinion is inconsequential to my debate here. And I'm saying that if we have to be serious, we require that kind of a national framework, so that any debate, sectorially or otherwise, can be within, the brackets of that particular framework to drive us home. So then we can pin party policy frameworks. And I'm careful not to say manifestos, because manifestos are mostly saddled with lies.
Yeah.
Party policy trajectory must be predicated on that particular well-agreed national blueprint. Okay, at the end of the day, if a debate is to be held, the debate is held in judgment that is particularly tailored towards the key performance indicators that are enshrined in such a national blueprint. So in the absence of that, any debate is a platform for the most arrogant of the contestants to jab the other. That is what it is. And that in itself can lead into political turmoil in this country. Now, why I am against a debate in this current election, whether by the IEA or by any other entity, I'm against it because already we've had a situation out there where the entire issue of debate has been trivialized in a manner that have whipped sentiments in both parts, in both leading political divides. Negative sentiments said that if we don't take care and we host a debate, it may lead into rioting because people are angry. Any serious attempt to have, any attempt to have a debate in this country will lead to fight.
It will expose the government the more.
I'm telling you, it will lead to fight. Whether it is, as for the merits, look, I have always maintained that the MPP government, whatever you label as a sin in the MPP government, you can trace it in every other successive government, except that we have these evils occurring at different intensities. And you know my position on that. I mean, every viewer on this channel knows my position on these things. Now, the easiest way to trivialize, ridicule, and avoid a public debate is one of the candidates being the first to ask for that invitation. It then means that you are summoning the others. For what agenda? So here, again, you realize that the current circumstances have already misfired, if not on triple cylinders, but at least on double cylinders. So the IEA's debate, no matter how genuine it is, will now look as though it is because a certain candidate or one of the candidates or the candidates are challenging each other to it. So I think that rather than us organize presidential debates, believing in the superiority of my candidates' visions for Ghana, my proposal will be that can we rather have a separate engagement with each of them, give them a national interaction platform to have all the time to spell out their visions and to have the media interact with them, maybe like what your mama did, answering questions with the media, a question and answer session, will even better allow my candidate to spell out his vision better than any other debate. But right now, if we call for a debate, we are going to have national security issues. Right. Because of the ridicule and the trivialization of saying out there.
Right.
And I don't support it at all.
Right.
Now, the IEA, just to conclude, the IEA itself, Where have they been all this while? So you see the hypocrisy with certain national institutions. Where have they been all this while? We know how they used to do it. Even though there were a few skirmishes, but at least it started with a lot of credibility, some credibility. Now that cannot be said. And given the connection of the EC chair to IEA in particular, I oppose to any debate.
Thank you very much, Elvis Bota. Mr. Sapon.
This is a very interesting angle my brother came from. And, you know, IEA and presidential debate. Let's in just some few seconds, are we able to define what a debate is? And so my question is, what are we debating about? A debate is supposed to be a formal discussion on a particular matter or subject matter. But you will notice that the deal, the NDC and the NPP, always limit debates to the argument of who has performed abysmally. A debate.
One sin is a repetition of the others.
Yes.
What is that?
Who did? If it's on corruption, then who is more corrupt? But you will never hear them discuss the issue of how are we able to deal with the issue of corruption. And you know why? Because they do not have the moral grounds to be able to deal with these matters. Sure. Inflation is 22%. Am I right? It's about 22%.
23.4, yeah.
Absolutely.
After it's
how do we move inflation from 22%? Should be what should be debated on. A fruit of tomatoes is between 4 cedis to 5 cedis.
In which market?
I remember I'm 150 Ghana cedis. I went with her.
No, understand my question.
He wants to go and buy
in which
from
market?
Because it appears
they are working suicide on your friend is saying.
It appears
it's cheaper. You know.
We 150 Ghana. You know how many fruits we got? We got less than 40. I think 42 or so fruits.
I'm sure you counted.
Masa.
That should be around 3
That
3 cedis, 70 pesos per fruit.
Yeah.
A fruit is like 6 cedis now.
I mean, depending on the size.
My senior brother is busy. He hasn't counted the tomato well. He's busy with the great transformation plan.
And that is what we should be debating on. How are we able to come up with a new agricultural revolution to increase productivity, to make food cheap in this country? That is what we should be debating on.
I was going to have very insightful things on that, on the school feeding thing. But no.
Galamsey, how they have destroyed our water bodies. When we have had a president state that he's putting his presidency on the line. But yet, every single statement that has been made, every single investigations that have been done, trace the issues of Galamsey to the doorstep of the presidency.
Of politicians, chiefs.
Of politicians. How are we able to deal with it? That is what the debates should be about. But are we sure that Alaji, in his heart of hearts, has policy frameworks to deal with these matters? Even his style of campaigning has changed.
It's not dancing as
When he started,
You think Muhammad does too?
when we started, please, he was going from campus to campus.
To dance.
Then the students will be given opportunity coached, giving questions to ask him for him to respond. On just one occasion, when a student became stubborn and said that, listen, the question you've given me is not what I'm going to ask. You have said you are paying necessary allowances. I have been a student for 3 years. I have not received a single allowance. Mr. President, when are you paying us?
He got rattled.
Now they have changed it. They go to meet the students, they play music and dance, and they go.
No more questions.
No more questions. That is what we are dealing with. You understand? Take these two political parties.
I thought you mentioned 3.
3, I was going to add CPP. I just remembered that CPP has not.
But they don't have a candidate in this election.
No, they are joining yet. Alliance for Revolutionary Change. If you take these two, MPP, also Akobo Doctorate Aba, they have 319 members on various committees to write a manifesto.
So my PhD must be part of it.
They have 100 proofreaders and reviewers. If you add it together, it's 419. In some few days or weeks, they'll be coming out with the 419 manifesto.
These numbers are not realistic.
So they have
These numbers are not realistic.
319
and 100 reviewers. That's not true.
Murtala has not been able
He's not part of
to even form his committees.
No,
we are
virtually done for, except on the trade industries.
But since when have you become a supervisor on this committee?
Because
that you know
I have become a supervisor.
We have just few now. I'm sure.
No, NPP does that.
So I have become
the manifesto committee is not even up to 40.
No, it's not even up to
100 proofreaders.
As we speak, Alan Kojo Chirmantin and his movement for change, when he had stated that he was going to come to contest the presidency, when he was making his public
presidential election,
when he was making his public statement, immediately he told Ghanaians his plan and how he would go about it. He gave to Ghanaians the Great Transformational Plan, stated in it how he would handle the government when it is handed to him. This should be the basis why civil society organizations like IEA put these presidential aspirants, persons who have made public their intentions to contest the presidency, to test and ask them, how do you intend to deal with the matters? Not how much are you going to lament. Who in Ghana doesn't know that $1 to a cedi is 16? A pound is about 22. But what we are asking is, how do you intend to solve these matters, whether long term or short term?
Can you wrap up for my time?
May I wrap it up?
Yeah,
so the two of them, they are only looking for an opportunity to go and lament. But we are putting to them, you see, the presidency is for individuals. And this would, in wrapping up, I would just want to send a signal to Madam Jane and the Electoral Commission. When they are in public and making statements, they should stop referring to political parties, because the Electoral Commission or the Electoral Commissioner is one constituency when it comes to the presidency. And people have publicly, persons like Alan John Kojo Chirmantin have publicly stated their intentions to contest as independent presidential candidates. So when they are making references and they refer to just political parties, and that political parties should accept the results and that, there are individuals who have the intention to contest as independent candidates. In any case, if they have the intention, or they are being motivated to in any way disqualify anybody whatsoever, they should think twice. Because if they continually make references to political parties, Alan says he's not a political party.
Right.
He's contesting as an independent candidate.
Right.
In the past, even though they refer to these political parties, independent candidates still contest.
We want the independent candidacy of individuals who have made their intentions known to be recognized by her.
Right.
Yes, we agree.
Right.
That because they are just independent candidates, they will say that, oh, they have. But listen, we have individuals who are stakeholders in this nation.
Right. Right. Right.
As for the IEA and the debate,
right.
The two of them should come and tell us. Well, we have brought the Great Transformational Plan out.
Right.
And it's in 6 clusters.
Right. Right.
Tackling all the angles.
You come. I'll bring you next week again. you further explain it. I've gone past my time.
On a more serious note, their communicators are doing well.
Oh no, very well.
Any opportunity they get, you know what they do? They go off track.
And then markets. Yes. Our time is up. Good morning to Ambassador Sam Piale. He's actually doing the watching. He extends his regards to all of you on the show. Yeah. And also once again, let me take time to wish Na Heshibalo, the first Choko Chimuna Oblai Amange, happy birthday to you. This is coming from Ivy Dede Naki. Right. Thank you so much, Elvis. It was good to have you back on the show. Thank you, Nanaya Sapon. Thank you, Comrade Mutala Mohammed. And to our cherished viewers, we'll do that next week. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Truly African.
And welcome to the show.